right? Which just underscores the need. You have to create the crisis. You have to engineer these food shortages to then turn around and demand from the people the solution that you want. Problem, reaction, solution. So here is the problem now, and it's a real problem. We've been talking about it for years, but now it's been surfaced, and it's quite acute, and it's in your face. Update: corn and soy stocks are falling as exports continue to rise. U.S. is shipping at record paces corn and soy to China, even in the face of headlines like this from Bloomberg. U.S. crop report signals worsening global food security situation. Quote, world soybean stockpiles will be smaller than expected, growing competition over the global wheat shipments and highlighting dry weather as a threat to crops in part of South America and Europe. Because we're already having shortages of corn and soy, so there's now countries are competing to get what remains of the wheat. And as this indicates, eyes are now on South America to see, because that's the number 3 producer of corn. So now all eyes on Brazil, where, yes, lo and behold, they're having drought conditions that have been preventing farmers from planting. In fact, just this previous week, they kind of gave up and said, well, we either plant now or we lose the chance. So they planted into extremely dry soil and are just hoping that they get some rain. Here is that piece. Brazilian farmers proceeding with their corn and soybean plantings at this point, despite the extremely dry seedbed, just in the hopes, that's a Hail Mary, hopes that the whole thing turns around. 31% of the summer corn is now in the ground, which is on the average, but most of it has no water. There's no moisture. It will not germinate. So eyes on Brazil, but given that, prices continue to soar right now. Countries are rushing to hoard food. This is at the international level. We're not talking about like you and Joe down the street trying to get the last can of corn, which is also short right now, as I mentioned in the previous report, from the store. We're now talking about countries trying to secure a year's worth of grains. And it's getting out of hand. So we read down here, agricultural commodity buyers from Cairo to Islamabad have been on a shopping spree since the COVID-19 pandemic upended supply chains. Jordan has built up a record wheat reserve. Egypt, the top buyer, has now tapped international markets even during its harvest and purchased more than 50% of normal purchases since April. Hand over fist, give me all the food you can right now. Everyone, except for the U.S., who's selling it off at record levels, is trying to make sure that they'll be able to feed their people. Taiwan boosting strategic food stockpiles. China buying like crazy. This all underscores how nations are trying to protect themselves on concerns that the coronavirus, at which we just point and blame everything, will disrupt port operations and wreak havoc on global trade. The pandemic has already upset domestic farm-to-fork supply chains, and now it's getting worse. COVID-19 has forced consumers to shift from just-in-time inventory management to just-in-case inventory management, and that means buy everything you can. The result is consumers are holding more inventory as a precaution against future supply disruptions, which would seem to be wise given the way that the world players are handling the situation, stockpiling food themselves, right? If they're doing it, you better believe so should we. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Brazil just dropped all tariffs on corn and soy meal purchases in an effort to keep their own food prices down. Quote, Brazil will suspend tariffs on corn and soy imports from countries outside the trade bloc until early next year to help reduce food prices. Don't even worry about the taxes. Just give us the food. When you hear governments say, forget the tax revenue, you know the situation has gotten to a bad crescendo here. And that's where we are now. We're at a world food crisis. Just as the scripts that was written by the billionaires, Soros and John Podesta, the food chain reaction game, there'll be a world food crisis after a pandemic. The actions of nationalists trying to purchase food for their own country will exacerbate it. This is the script. Welcome to it. You're in it. We're going to have food shortages next. They're going to use that to institute a carbon tax and even more control and global governance. This is all straight from the food chain reaction game simulation. I hope we've done a good job scratching the surface at this syndemic narrative that has entered the mainstream lexicon this week. You can find this report and all my reports on iceagefarmer.com. Please subscribe to the BitChute channel because I don't trust YouTube at this point. At bitchute.com/iceagefarmer. There's a subscribe button and you can keep getting notifications just like you're used to on YouTube. So please check that out. And if you value this broadcast and the information that I'm bringing, please support it. You can find a few ways of doing that at iceagefarmer.com/support. And I very genuinely appreciate your help in keeping things running. It's also a vote of confidence and just lets me know that this is a worthwhile effort. So thanks for letting me know that you believe that as well. All right, folks, thanks for watching this. Let's go grow abundant amounts of food, spread the word about this fundamental transformation of society and the end of civilization as they're describing it, that they have planned for us, or else we will walk headfirst into this agenda. Instead, we must be creating new systems, the ones we want our children to be growing up with, regenerative practices, local communities feeding each other and securing ourselves and our futures. That's what we need to be building right now. Join me in doing that. Thanks for watching. Be well.